Our theme during the month of February and March is Choose Love, is on the subject of love. Now, I think I announced the topic last week that I might talk on today, but I have changed my mind. And I do that every so often. I have changed my mind from the front seat to the pulpit, what I'm going to preach. But I didn't do it that suddenly today. Today we're going to be talking about keeping the fire of love burning. And that will take us to the Song of Solomon. If you'll turn in your Bibles to the Song of Solomon. And while you're turning to that book of the Bible, and it's right before Isaiah, if you know where Isaiah happens to be. Now, the Song of Solomon is a love song written by Solomon. And the Song of Solomon is filled with metaphors and imagery, oriental imagery. And this tells about Solomon's love for a shepherdess. And she'll have some things to say. As a matter of fact, we're going to be studying what she says this morning. We'll get to that in a moment. And then Solomon responds. But also, this book is an allegorical in pictures of God's love for His bride in the Old Testament, which was Israel. And when you study the book of Hosea, which is about an unfaithful wife, you see how God felt about Israel. And the unfaithful wife of the prophet was to illustrate the unfaithfulness of God's people at that time. But also the Song of Solomon has a spiritual meaning, and it is about Christ and His love for His bride, or Christ and His love for the church. But we're going to look at it not from that standpoint this morning. We're going to look at it from the standpoint of Solomon and the shepherdess whom he loved. And so turn to Song of Solomon, chapter 8, and we're going to read two verses, verse 6 and verse 7. The Song of Solomon, chapter 8, verse 6 and verse 7. And this is the Shulamite, or the shepherdess, the bride, talking to her husband, Solomon. And Solomon knew about women. He had a bunch of them, a lot of women. She says, "Set me as a seal upon your heart, and as a seal upon your arm, for love is as strong as death, jealousy as cruel as the grave. Its flames," that is the flames of love, "its flames are flames of fire, a most vehement flame." Verse 7, "Many waters cannot quench love, nor can the floods drown it. If a man would give for love all the wealth of his house, it would be utterly despised." An elderly couple were sitting together before their fireplace, and they were warming themselves by the heat coming out of the fireplace, and it was flickering and flames licking up in there. And they got to talking about their many years together and all of the highs and the lows in their lives, the joys and the sorrows that they had experienced in their marriage. And the husband says to the wife, "You know, honey, it's not going to be long. We've been together a long, long time. And honey," he said to her, "it's not going to be long until there's only one of us left." And she says, "I know. And when that happens, I plan to move to Florida." Biblical marriage is under attack today. English hero Field Marshal Montgomery said to his troops one time, he said, "Gentlemen, do not even consider marriage until you have mastered the art of war." Well, there's been a war going on in regards to the family from the very beginning of time. From the beginning of man's existence on this earth, Satan has done everything within his power to destroy the family as God had planned it or God would have it, the purpose for which God created the family. You go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 2. Well, if you start in chapter 1 and you see all of the creation that God made, and every time God created something, he said it is what? Good. It is good. It is good. But then he saw man. He had created man, Genesis 2:7, out of the dust of the ground, and he breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life. God's breath was in Adam, and he became what kind of a soul? A living soul. Well, down in the 18th chapter of Genesis, God saw that it was not what for Adam? Was not good for the man to be what? Alone. He said it's not good for him to be alone. So God took a rib from the side of the man. And someone says, well, why did he do it? Couldn't God have made the woman out of the dust of the ground? I'd like to think this, that God took a rib from the side of man and created that woman out of that rib. Did not create the woman out of a man's head so that she would have dominion over him, nor did he create that woman out of his feet that he would trample on her, but he took a rib from his what? Side near his what? Heart, that they might be as one. In fact, that's how God created them. So then when God created the woman and she was presented to the man, he said, this is now bone of my what? Bone and flesh of my flesh, and she shall be called woman, for she is taken out of man. For this cause shall a man leave, that's an important word, leave his father and mother and cleave. That's another big word there. You can't cleave till you do some leaving. You got to leave father and mother. Jack Exum used to say the best thing a mother could give her son on his wedding day were her apron strings. If you're not old enough and mature enough to leave your father and your mother. You're not mature enough and you're not old enough to get married. So leave your father and mother and do what to your wife? Cleave. That means you're glued to her. You're stuck together. You cleave your wife, and those two shall be what? One flesh. And it says, therefore, what God had joined together, God did it. Marriages are made in heaven. The maintenance work's carried on down here. And so God joined them together, said what God had joined together, no man has a right to do what? Put it asunder. So marriages, but Satan stepped in the Garden of Eden, and he whispered in Eve's ear. Now, I don't know whether he got up in the ear or not, but she was listening to him. And in 2 Corinthians 11, 2 and 3, she was deceived by the devil, and she ate of the forbidden fruit, and she whispered in her husband's ear, and he took it too. And because of their sin in the Garden of Eden, sin entered the world. What caused that to happen? Devil came between Adam and Eve. But then they had some boys, and the devil tried to destroy that part of their family, that very first family, because what the devil entered in the heart of who? Cain, and he did what? Killed his brother. You see, from the very beginning, the devil has been trying to destroy the home. But Satan is still very active today, trying to destroy the homes across this land and all the countries of the world. The morality in our nation is at rather low ebb right now. Good moral living. And then he is trying to destroy our home. He wants to destroy the church, God's bride today as well. So the question is, what can we do to keep the fire burning in our home? The fire of love burning in our home. I believe that the home is built upon agape love, and that's love to its ultimate. That's the love that God has for man. There are different words for love in the Greek language, and we're not going to go into all of that because you didn't come to hear Greek. You came to hear English. And so, but the word agape is the kind of love God has for us. Now, in these two verses that we read, we see what it takes to keep the fire of love burning, and we also see really what love is. And the first thing we notice that love, notice verse 6, love is possession. He said, set a seal upon your heart. Now, a seal in those days, and possibly in some, if you're a notary, it's still that way. What is a notary? If you go to have something notarized, what do? They stamp it with what? With their seal. That makes it official, doesn't it? In ancient times, kings, and Solomon was a king, they had a seal, and if they had a document they wanted to certify, as it were, they would seal it with their signet ring or whatever they used to seal it. And so a seal was in those days was a sign of ownership. So the kind of love that we're talking about here in verse number 6 is the kind of love that says, you are mine and I am yours. It means that you are going to be faithful to your spouse. And it further means that there is no room for anyone else. In modern day America, now let me put it this way, in modern day Foley, Alabama, and Summerdale, Alabama, and Robertsdale, Alabama, and Gulf Shores, Alabama, more homes are destroyed because someone else gets in between the husband and wife. I think about what Solomon wrote in Proverbs 5 when he said, you are to drink water out of your own cistern. And he's talking about marriage. So you don't drink water out of somebody else's cistern. You set a seal upon your heart. And that means that there is no room for another in that relationship. Satan's strategy has always been, and it always will be, his strategy to destroy a home or to break it up is to come between the man and his wife. So here we learn in the Song of Solomon, chapter 8, verse 6, that you're to set a seal upon your heart. Love is possession. And there's a country song that's been rattling around in my head about that, about leave my man alone or something like that, but I can't bring it up right now. Who? Dolly Parton. You should know that you'd know that. Yeah. Leave my man alone. Well, secondly, love is permanent. Notice he says in the text, love is as strong as what? As strong as death. Well, how strong is death? Well, when you take that step, you don't come back, do you? David had a child to die, an infant, and David said, I shall go to him, he shall not come to me. That's found in 2 Samuel 12:23, if memory serves me correctly. But death is a step that a person takes, and there's no return from it. The Hebrew writer said it's appointed unto a man once to die. But Solomon described death like this. Man goes to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets, or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel be broken at the cistern, then shall the dust return of the earth as it was, and the spirit unto God who gave it. So when we die, spirit goes back where it came from God, and our bodies go back to the dust to await the resurrection of the dead. This kind of love is saying, when love is as strong as death, love is permanent. Death is pretty permanent. There was a woman by the name of Mary Baker Eddy, and she would say that you're sick, you're not really sick, you just think you're sick. And Mary Baker Eddy died, and someone went to her grave, and she used to say that when you die, you just think you're dead, you're not really dead. So they went to her grave and said, you just think you're dead, you're not really dead. But she is dead. It's permanent until the resurrection. But here's a fact. This is a fact, as Phil Robertson might say, a fact, Jack. Marriage is for what? How long? Forever, for life. It's for life. Turn in your Bibles over to Romans, the 7th chapter, and I want us to read starting in chapter 7 and verse number 1. Romans chapter 7 and verse 1. Or do you not know, brethren, for I speak to those who know the law, that the law has dominion over a man as long as he lives. Now verse 2. For the woman who has a husband is bound by the law to her husband. How long? As long as he lives. But if the husband dies, she is released from the law of her husband. So then, if while her husband lives, she marries another man, she shall be called what? An adulteress. But if her husband dies, She is free from that law, so that she is no adulteress, though she's married another man. And then he makes the application out of that. That's an illustration, really, to apply. Therefore, my brethren, you also become dead to the law through the body of Christ. You should be married to another. We're married to Jesus. To him was raised from the dead, that we should bear fruit to God. So he's showing the distinction between the old and the new law. And they are no longer subject or married to that old through the law, but they're released from it. And so that's the case in regard to a woman in a marital relationship. And so marriage is for life. It is for life. It is permanent. I think about God's love. I think about what he said to his people in Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse number 3. He said, I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have loved you with an everlasting love. Take your Bibles and turn to the 19th chapter of Matthew. While we're flying over this territory, we're going to drop just a few little things, tidbits in here. Verse 1, it came to pass when Jesus had finished these sayings that he departed from Galilee and came to the region of Judea beyond the Jordan. And great multitudes followed him, and he healed them there. Now, here come the Pharisees, always after Jesus, trying to get something on him. The Pharisees also came to him, testing him. See, they're testing him, saying, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for just any reason? She burns the toast, so I think I'll just put her away. Or she doesn't wear her hair like I like it, so I'm just going to get rid of her. Or I had a girl come to me one time from over at Mobile. She was married. She'd been married a year, and she wanted me to tell her it was all right for her to divorce her husband because he wouldn't brush his teeth and take a bath. I said, how long did you date him? She said, 3 years. It's hard for me to believe that he changed his habits from the dating stage to the marriage stage. So she already knew he didn't brush his teeth, and she already knew he didn't take a bath before she married him. So I said, I said, if you were my mother, I wouldn't tell you had a right to put him away, but for those reasons. No. So they said, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for just any reason? He answered and said to them, have you not read that he who made them at the beginning, and who made them at the beginning? Who did that? God made them whatever they thought they were. Is that right? He made them what? Male, and what else? Female. It wasn't this sermon I preached on television, as far as I can remember, but last week when I was preaching on television, but I did preach a sermon on the way God values the home, his viewpoint on family values. And so one of the points I made was about Genesis 2, and I said some people don't know whether they are a male or a female. They'll say, I was born a man, but I feel like I'm a woman. And I made this statement, and I called the guy, the producer. He had already gone back to Chicago, and I said, if there's a way you can do it, I said, how about just taking this sentence out? I said, what would you think of me if I told you I thought I was a screwdriver? You'd think I was crazy. Louise thought that might have been a little over the top, but I said, even animals out in the field know the difference. They know what they are. I said, that's silly. And then he said, for this reason shall a man leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then, they are no longer two, but they're what? One flesh. Therefore, what God hath joined together, let not man separate. They said to him, why then did Moses command to give a certificate of divorce and to put her away? And he said to them, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart, permitted you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning it was what? Not so. You see, they wanted to point back to Moses. Sometimes today when people are talking about the home, they want to go back to what Moses said. Where did Jesus start? He started at the what? Starts with a B. At the beginning. Jesus said, let's go back to when God created the home to begin with. That first couple. He said, from the very beginning of time, it was not so. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for what? Sexual what? Immorality, and marries another commits adultery. And whoever marries her who is divorced commits adultery. So that's what the Lord said. But the devil is trying to destroy the home today. It's permanent. It's for life. Now, third, we learned that love is passionate. Notice verse 6. It's love. Love's flames are flames of fire, a most vehement fire. One thing about when God made us with passion. He made us, we have emotions, and made us passionate beings. And there should be a glow or a fire that exists between a husband and wife. Sometimes there are things that dampen the flame of love. I'm sure you could add to this list. Let me give you mine, and then we'll see if you've got anything you want to add. But sometimes jealousy can dampen the flame. And I have known of men that did not want their wives to even speak to a man. To even speak to a man. One day, Louise and I were shopping in Walmart's. I said, Louise and we were together. I saw a young woman with her family, her husband, I assumed all of her children, and she had helped me when I went to have some therapy. So I just thought that we used to speak when we'd have therapy, and so I said something to her, and her husband got all over her because she spoke to me. And if she could have got under his wing any more, she's like a whipped dog. Like a whipped dog. Well, not long ago, let me tell you the rest of that story. Not long ago, I had to go back for some therapy. I forget what it was now. I've done it so often through my life. And she doesn't work at this place anymore, but she came in to visit. And I've never seen a woman as cheerful and happy in all of my life. And you know what I asked? I said, is she still married to that guy? Oh, no, she got rid of him. Is it any wonder? Is it any wonder? Another thing that can dampen the flame of love is abuse. Abuse. Sometimes it's just verbal abuse. I think that he was abusive. If he's verbally abusive, eventually he's going to be physically abusive. The Bible says that a man ought to cherish his wife like Jesus does his church. A man that loves his wife, and his wife will never have to nurse a bruise on her body if he really loves her. Sarcasm, that dampens love. And neglect, just being neglectful. I've known of people who divorced, and I didn't know all the details, but it just seemed to me the husband did not spend very much time with his wife. And I'll tell you, if you don't find time to spend with your wife, somebody else will, if you're not very careful. Another thing that I think destroys this love is selfishness. Just being selfish. And of course, cheating will do it. All of us, most of us that are members here at Summerdale remember Maurice Johnson. Maurice is one of our elders here. And he fell and hit his head, and he died as a result of that. He was a good man and a good elder. His wife is named Lovey. Isn't that cute? Lovey. And when Lovey will actually be here this morning, go up to her and tell her this is the best Sunday I've had all week. That'd be Maurice. He said that every Sunday. This is the best Sunday I've had all week. If you saw him on Monday, he'd say, this is the best Monday I've had all week. She told me after he died that in all of their married life, which was 60 plus years, she had never opened the door to their car when the two of them were going somewhere. She said, I just stand by the door till he came and opened it. He always opened the door for her, because it wasn't because she was just standing there, but he wanted to do it. And my shoes are getting a little tighter than they were when I put them on first this morning. All of us don't do that. We should. But love, let's notice now verse 7, love is persevering. He said, many waters cannot quench love. There's nothing that can put the fire out when there's love in your heart. When trials come, and they're going to come in your life, love goes stronger. And you just grow. I've often thought that the hard times are what make us. I've noticed that a lot of Christians today are living to be married 40, 50, and more years. And it's because their love is persevering. Love is, you know, when a preacher stands and he's performing the ceremony, and he said, this is for better or for what else? Or for worse. And sometimes the worse is worse than you thought worse was going to be, you know. But it's better or for worse. It's for better or for worse. There was a couple getting married in a little rural church. And outside the door of the church building, there was a bell. And sometimes they would ring the bell, go out there. Some of us might be old enough to remember when churches would have bells, and they'd ring the bells to call everybody to come in, you know, to worship. And you could hear it out throughout the community. But that wasn't the purpose on this occasion. And they went outside, and the preacher told this young bride, I want you to pull the rope and to ring the bell. And she got a hold of the rope with all her might, but she just couldn't ring it. And he told him, said, now you get a hold of the rope. And so together, with both of them holding on to the rope, they were able to ring the bell. You see, you've got to pull together in life. We got 5 minutes. I've got 5 minutes a lesson. We've got to pull together to ring the bell. Then, verse 7, love is priceless. If a man would give all the substance of his house for love, it would be utterly despised. Your family, my family, is priceless. That there's no amount of money that can be exchanged for a good wife. Proverbs chapter 31, verse 10 says that who can find what kind of woman? A virtuous woman, for her price is far above what? Rubies. The heart of her husband does safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She'll do him good and not evil all the days of his life. A good wife is more precious, more valuable than a bunch of jewelry. She's priceless. Suppose you were offered $10 million on your job, or more time with your family. There was somebody that did something like that. It wasn't $10 million, it was a lesser sum. And those that were offered more money on their job versus time with their family chose the money over their family. I know it takes a lot to live today. We go to the store too, we buy things too. But we need to put a premium, a price on our family. That is, we need to value it. It's priceless. There's no amount of money. I was preaching in Macon, Georgia years ago in a meeting, and a man came to me. He said, "Brother Lambert, I need to talk to you." And I could tell he was nervous. So after the service was over, we went in a little office there, and I said, "What's your problem?" He said, "My wife's about to leave me." I said, "Well, what's going on?" He says, "Well, I don't know." Said, "I have a job." And he told him how much money he made on that job. And he said, "I have another job." And he told him how much money he made on that job. And he said, "I give her everything she wants." Now, you can tell me if I told a man the wrong thing or not, but I'm going to tell you what I told him. I said, "The one thing you've not given her that she really wants, you know what it is?" "No, you. She wants you. And time, it takes time to do that, time." And so love is priceless. And it is love that will keep us together. Love is the bond of perfectness. It's the glue, the cement. It keeps us together. Now, I had a list of some 6 things, and I'm going to give you. Y'all just sit still, because I'm going to give them to you whether you get up or not. These 6 things will keep you together. Pray together, read the Bible together, keep the courtship going, spend quality time together, hold hands, and kiss. According to a West German survey, men who kiss their wives every day live 5 years longer. And you're looking at a man that wants to live as long as he can. Here's our guiding principle. As for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. Now, that's my Valentine's lesson on love for you today. That's why I changed. It's so close to Valentine's Day. God bless y'all. We'll start our service in just a few moments.